Every era of warfare has forced civilians to become unwilling experts in survival. But nowhere is that transformation more intense than inside a besieged city. When the gates closed, supply routes collapsed, and enemy armies encircled the walls, the tools, habits and instincts that kept ordinary people alive often meant the difference between the memory of a city and the ashes of one. What's always struck me is how these survival tricks, formed under the worst pressure imaginable, weren't random acts of desperation. They were learned behaviours, refined generation after generation, carried from Carthage to Constantinople to Leningrad. And they weren't just military tactics, they were civilian ingenuity at its highest level. For Warpaths of Europe, today's guide unpacks these methods not as distant stories, but as practical knowledge that still applies to modern urban preparedness. If you study conflict, urban warfare, or long-term resilience, these lessons hold real value. And with that, let's step directly into the techniques that allowed trapped populations to endure when the outside world expected them to collapse. Nothing tests human creativity like forced starvation. And throughout history, cities under siege developed techniques far more structured than the broad idea of rationing. During the siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE, households dried every possible scrap, from fruit skins to tree bark, because dry goods required no fire or stove time, reducing smoke that could alert besiegers to inhabited pockets. In medieval Europe, people learned to shift to high-fat preparations because fat delivered more calories per unit of storage. The Byzantines were masters of this, producing dense fats and fermented pastes that survived months without spoiling. A modern survivalist looking to apply this knowledge could study how these pastes were made and replicate the model by preparing high-density emergency food that requires minimal fuel to consume. The trick is emphasizing compact calories, low moisture preservation, and foods that remain stable when cooking becomes too dangerous or too resource-intensive. One of the most forgotten aspects of urban survival is concealment from an enemy who isn't necessarily inside the city, but can observe everything from elevated ground. During the siege of Constantinople in 1453, residents were instructed to limit visible smoke by burning oils, tar, or pre-dried material that produced minimal signatures. During the English Civil War, towns under siege learned to cook in early morning hours, when fog or coastal humidity helped hide heat columns. These weren't just defensive strategies, they were survival measures that made daily life possible under surveillance. For modern application, the takeaway is simple and entirely practical. In a crisis, the biggest giveaway of human presence is light and heat. Studying the historical solutions shows exactly how to minimize those signatures. Shielding flame sources, cooking during low visibility windows, and using low-smoke fuels increases safety and reduces the risk of attention in unstable environments. It's not hypothetical. It's exactly what people did for centuries when their lives depended on it. During the siege of Paris in 1870, the city's catacombs became, silent highways for movement, small-scale supply transport and communication. In Sarajevo, basements, collapsed buildings and sewer systems served the same purpose. The lesson across eras is identical. When streets become firing lanes, survival shifts downward or sideways into hidden infrastructure. Historical populations mapped unused alleys, walled-off workshops and abandoned storage rooms as alternative routes long before a crisis peaked. Someone today who studies urban survival can take this principle directly. Learning the hidden geometry of your city, service tunnels, overpasses, interior building connections, maintenance corridors, is not paranoia, but historical strategy. People who already understood their city's forgotten spaces always had the highest survival likelihood during extended sieges. Water shortages break cities faster than hunger. Ancient defenders knew this, which is why cities like Rhodes, Tyre, and many Crusader fortresses invested heavily in cisterns protected deep within the urban core. They weren't romantic architectural choices, they were deliberate survival engineering. Rainwater diversion through rooftops into underground chambers kept populations alive for months when wells were destroyed or poisoned by besieging forces. In the 20th century, Leningrad residents melted snow in hidden stoves, filtered it through cloth layers and boiled it in shifts throughout the day to avoid detection. The consistent pattern across history is that the cities which survived longest had residents who treated water preservation as a priority equal to defence. For practical application today, studying these systems shows the value of redundancy. Multiple sources, storage methods protected from contamination, and low-visibility purification techniques that require minimal resources. Sieges always lasted longer than expected, and psychological breakdown within the walls often killed more than enemy weapons. During the Siege of Leiden in 1574, community leaders organized small rotations of tasks to keep order and maintain morale. In Leningrad, residents created micro-routines, music circles, reading groups, and even small educational gatherings that kept minds from deteriorating under the constant pressure of starvation and bombardment. Studying these moments shows that survival wasn't merely physical, it was behavioral. A modern reader can replicate this principle by understanding that routines, mental framework, and small purposeful actions are not luxuries but survival necessities. The people who held on were the ones who found ways to build microstructures of normal life inside absolute chaos. Urban survival tricks used during city sieges. Throughout history proves that ancient and modern strategies converge. After examining city after city across Europe and beyond, the consistent truth is that survival during sieges followed recognizable patterns. Control food density, hide signals from hostile watchers, exploit forgotten spaces, secure water quietly, and maintain psychological structure. These weren't just reactions to crisis. They were accumulated human knowledge refined through generations. If guides like this one deepen your understanding of warfare, human resilience, and the lessons history still teaches us, make sure to subscribe to Warpaths of Europe and share this video with fellow historians and survival-minded viewers. More episodes are coming, and each one unpacks another layer of Europe's wartime past with the depth it deserves.